What's up? Rorlin here. This week on 3D NerdStop, we're going to revisit the rubber band gun. I've made some improvements to this model, and I'm going to show you what I've done. Now it works every time. Alright guys, here we go. This is the rubber band gun that we're going to do the modification to. This is the same rubber band gun that we did the last time, except for this one's been modified so the body is one piece instead of being three pieces. Now, of course, the modification we're going to do to this, it's a little easier to see in this picture. As you can see here, if you look right here by the body, you can see how the rubber band bends around the back of the frame and goes around the wheel. Well, that's great. But it doesn't always bend around the back of the frame. Sometimes it slides in between the frame and the wheel. So when it does that, the rubber band gets hung up and keeps the wheel from being able to spin. And I know you can't see it on this one real well, but right where the trigger mechanism catches the wheel right here, because this is roughly the same size, if not just a hair bigger than the trigger mechanism that catches it, sometimes when you pull the trigger, the wheel will fall down, but the rubber band will catch on that trigger mechanism. So we're going to make modifications to the wheel, and then we're going to make modifications to the back of the frame. And by doing this, this will help the rubber bands from getting caught. So what we do now is download this model as usual and unzip it and then get into it. So let's do that. We did that, and I brought it up in Tinkercad. Now here's the wheel modified. This is what it looks like when it's done. Okay, so basically what I'd done is I made the little arms a little bit narrower and made the wheel itself a little bit fatter, so the rubber bands have a place to ride beside the arms. Okay, and because the arms are a little bit narrower, where the trigger mechanism is, the piece that catches these arms is now wider than where the rubber bands sit, so the rubber bands won't catch on the corners of that trigger mechanism. But how I did this, well, let's take a look at it. We'll ungroup this real quick, and then we can drag these two out of the way. And then we'll ungroup it again. And basically what you can see here, what I did was I took a tube, this is what they call it down here, a tube, and made it bigger around than the actual arms are themselves. And I made them roughly 1.6 millimeters in height. So they're 1.6 millimeters on top and bottom. And I chopped 1.6 millimeters off the top and the bottom of this wheel. So I made it smaller by, what is that, 3.2 millimeters in total width. It's smaller, 1.6 on the top and 1.6 on the bottom. Okay, and then I grouped that together, and you can see it did that. Now this is actually the first phase I did on this. I tried doing it this way without modifying the rest of it and taking it further, and it worked, but the rubber bands would still fall off of this little ledge sometimes and will fall down between the frame and the edge. So I decided it needed to get a little bit more space on either side. So then what I did is you take this, and I created a cylinder and made it the same diameter as the inside of here. And then I also made another cylinder, nice tall one, the same diameter as the inside of here. Okay, and I put those three together, and if I align them on center and on center, let's pan out here and get this in view a little better. Ooh. There we go. Now you can see I have it all put together, and then I can simply group all of this, and you can see when I group it together, it makes the wheel. Now it's nice and fat, so there's plenty of room for the rubber bands to run on either side of it, and these are just a little bit thinner now than the trigger mechanism. So because we made this wider, we're going to need to modify the frame. So we came over to the frame here, and here's the frame, and as you can see, here's my modification. Now, so you know what the modification looked like, we can ungroup here, and as you can see, I basically just took two cylinders and flipped them up on their sides and positioned them in place. Now I went through a lot to get these in just the right place. Basically, I had to put a rod through here and center everything and rotate it after I centered it and group it together and make it weird shapes. And it took a while to get all this stuff in place. I don't want to go over all of how I did it because it was a lot of trial and error to get it to work right. But these are in the right place now. One of the things I am going to do is when this video goes live, there will be a link into it. I'm going to upload the new model, the modified version to Thingiverse. So if you want to download it and print it, you'll be more than capable. So you won't have to do any of these modifications yourself. So basically I just put the discs here and had them cut the excess that was needed on each side off. And then when you group it together, you can see that that takes that material away. And by doing that, now there's a nice area for that wheel to ride in and plenty of room for the rubber bands to ride beside it. Okay, so that's what we did to the models to modify them, and then I downloaded them. So I downloaded them, so what we should do is now let's bring them up and get them ready to print. Okay guys, here we go. I think one of the first things we should do is import the file. So let's do the gun frame first. So I'll say okay to that. Now, if you see when we first imported, it shows up gray. As you can see, it's too wide for the bed. But it's real easy to fix. All we have to do is just rotate it on the build plate. So you rotate it so it's diagonal, and because we're using a robo with a rather large build surface, it'll fit. But here we go. We are going to do this at our standard height and our standard shell thickness on top and bottom. So our standard height is 0.2 with our shell thicknesses, sides, tops, and bottom of 1.2. Fill density of 20%. I found that's more than enough for doing this part. We will do our print speed at 60, our temperature at 210, and our build plate at 50. We are going to do support material. And I have found that you only need to do support material touching the build plate. Okay. Now, one of the things you have to be aware of is one place it's going to fill is right up here at the muzzle. When you put the front side in, it's going to fill this full of support material. And it can be a little tricky to get the support material out of here. It takes a little work. You just have to work at it and it will come out. It's not a big deal. It does come out. It does fill this entire section in here full of support material, and it does go up through the trigger slit to put support material inside here, which is the only places you really need support material. Is you really need it in here and inside this trigger guard. But this works great. It puts beautiful support material. It does break away real easy. So as you can see, this says it's going to take about 7 hours and 22 minutes. It's about 40.41 meters of material, which is 121 grams. That's not too bad. So what we would do is save this off to an SD card. There we go. It's now saved off to an SD card. And then we can get our other stuff ready to print. Alright guys, now what we'll do is we'll print the rest of the parts. So we have the lock, the pin, the trigger, the wheel, all the other parts we need. So you open those up, and there you go. Now I have found that you do need three of the pins here, so we can multiply this object by 2. Say okay. Now one of the things I have found is when printing these is if you spread them out just a little bit more and don't leave them real close to each other, I mean not too far, is that it does a much better job of not stringing between the two of them. So it is better if you just kind of spread it out just a little bit. So there we go. Okay, now on these I am going to do this at 100% fill density. Okay, and the reason I tell you I'm going to do this at 100% fill density is because these arms on the wheel, I have found that if you only do it at like 20 or 30 or 40%, the heads of them keep snapping off. When you fully load the rubber band gun, it'll break off the first 1 or 2 heads after a while of using it. Doing it with 100% fill, I've managed to shoot quite a few with my test model I did, and I haven't seemed to have that problem. It seemed to work great. So I would recommend, if you don't want to do all of this in 100%, you at least do the wheel in 100%. Okay. So we're going to do this at 100% fill density, and we're going to do it at 0.2 layer height. The shell thickness, top and bottom, because we're doing 100%, really doesn't matter because it's going to print the whole thing solid anyways. But we are going to do that just for settings sake. We do have the shell and top and bottom set at 1.2. We are going to do it at a speed of 60 with a temperature of 210 and 50. We are only going to do touching the build plate. As far as support material goes, you need support material underneath these arms or they won't print correctly. Alright, so that says it's take an hour and 47 minutes. It's going to take 7.57 meters of material, which is 23 grams. It's fairly simple, so we'll save that off to the SD card. We will now take this over to the printer, get the printer heater up, and get her printing. Alright guys, as we can see here, we have the gun all printed out. Like we said before, this prints out, whoops, as we can say, this prints out as one piece. So this prints out as one really nice piece here. Okay, it's kind of hard to see because it's in black, but back here you can see my modification. And you can see here's the red wheel we printed with its modifications. So you can see how wide it is now. And you can tell when you drop this in here that it fits in the back really nicely, as you can see. Let's see if we can get that to focus. There we go. So as you can see, that fits in there real nice. So the first thing we'll do is put all this together. So we have this, and we put our trigger in here, and that fits in there nicely. And then we put the catch back here. That fits in there nicely. Stand the gun up, drop the trigger down where it goes, drop that down where it goes. And then you have to kind of line the trigger up with the hole here. Get one of your pins out. Now I did do a little bit of cleanup on the pins and stuff, just like I did last time. There we go. Put that pin in there. So that holds that in place. And then we line up this back hole the best we can. Let's see here. We can see that. Yep, got a little trouble here. Let's do this. Put the pin in here, like so. Put a little pressure down on it, and then get that back hole to line up. There we go. Got that hole line up, so we can see that pin now is in place. So now we can see our trigger mechanism's in place. So now we'll put our firing wheel in. As we can see, the hole lines up nice through it. And we'll take and put our last pin through there. So now that's in place. Okay, the one thing you have to do on this that you didn't have to do on the other one is the front sight, which is what holds rubber bands in place. Now this took a little bit of filing. I had to do some filing on the side and all the way around because it's a really tight fit. It is a really tight fit, guys. So you're going to have to fiddle with it to get it to go in. But once you get it filed down nicely, you can get it to slide right in. You don't have to worry about gluing it. It's not coming out. So there's the front sight. So now what we can do is we can take our rubber bands and we can load our first one up. Get that to catch. Put our first one on there. Then pull it back. And I like 4. 4 seems to work really well with this configuration. Now as you can see, when we do this, let me put the last rubber band on here. As you can see now, if we can get it to focus, there we go. All the rubber bands are riding nicely on the wheel here. Instead of being pinched between the frame and the side of the wheel, they're all on the wheel. So by doing that, when I pull the trigger, the first time is it locks everything into place. Now it's ready to fire. So now as I pull the trigger, each rubber band shoots, as you can see. So by putting that wheel there, another way to demonstrate this process is to put one rubber band on there and cock it around a little bit. As if the sample as if it has that many, and you can see now with just that one that it rotates the wheel nicely with each pull. And then shoots when it's supposed to, even on the last one. So as you can see there, guys, that's what it looks like all put back together. So there you go. Thank y'all for watching. If you liked what you saw, please like and subscribe. Please leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, have a great day.